3, 2, 1, 0.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Big 12 football with the voice of college football is brought to you by State Farm agent Chris Nowalski. Mountaineer fans, if you don't have State Farm auto insurance, let Chris Nowalski provide you with a no obligation quote to see how much money and better coverage he can get you. Just visit switch2chris.com or call 304-925-0384 for life, home, car insurance, and more. Get a free quote from State Farm agent Chris Nowalski. Now back to our show.
What is up, Big 12 Nation? I apologize for being a smidge late today. I was on the phone with Vivint and installing this new door lock. So, hooray me, getting that new door lock on the wall. So anyway, I was like, oh my God, I'm late for the show. Rather than grab all my props and lighting and everything, I was like, let me just get on this horn, talk with these folks, because we got to deconstruct this season that just was, right? We have a post-mortem here about what has just occurred. We'll hand out some grades, and then hopefully here in the coming weeks, I'll be able to have guests from every individual school, and we can talk about the season that was as in the season that is fixin' to be. I, of course, am your host, Clint Foster. You're watching The Biggest 12, the internet's favorite Big 12 YouTube live show. Please do subscribe to us if you haven't already. Hit that like button. Hit that little bell. Ding the little bell. You're going to want to be a part of this channel that we got going on here at Big 12 VOCFB here on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. And we're going to have a good time here all throughout the off season. Again, if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so at Clint Foster Comedy. There is a relatively new video at this point that I made last month, kind of a Christmas get-together video for the Big 12 schools. And I have a lot more videos on docket. As soon as I have time to make them, I will make them. That is my promise to you. I will have stuff out on that channel just as quickly as I possibly can. I'm only human, folks. I'm only human. Give me a break now. All right. So we got West Virginia fans in the chat. Love you, Mountaineers. So happy to see you as always. Oh, and follow me on Twitter at Clint_Foster55 in the spirit of Mountaineer, climb trusting and uplifting and all of that good stuff. If you're not already, you need to be watching Joey Foster's show, okay? The Big 12 Fan Zone, which is something absolutely you're just going to want to be a part of as much as if you like this show, you're going to love that show. Let me just say that, right? Joey has a lot more experience doing this sort of thing than me. He runs a great show, always lots of great conversation, great folks that you can meet from all over the Big 12. So something that you definitely want to do, all right? So that's my advice to you. It's on Thursday nights, whereas this show's on Tuesday nights. Okay, so let's talk about the season that was. Texas, thankfully, got us that college football playoff check and then promptly lost. You love to see it. I don't know about the rest of y'all. I was really pulling for Washington in that college football playoff semifinal, not because I have any beef with Michigan personally. I mean, the cheating thing is a little ick, but Washington hasn't won since 1991, and I really love Michael Penix, and I think JJ McCarthy has one of the most punchable faces in America. But other than that, no beef with Michigan. But good for them. Michigan, first national championship since 1997, those Charles Woodson days. JJ McCarthy can be very mindful and meditate about this for the rest of the year. And, Jim Harbaugh may be going to the NFL. Who knows? Remains to be seen. I will say one thing about Michigan. That defense looked pretty daggum good last night. That defense, Michael Penix was never comfortable the entire game, and they were flying around making great plays. All I got to say is you must have to be a really good team to beat Michigan. I don't know what sort of team could even be capable of such a feat. The very notion escapes me, but all I gotta say is there's probably somebody out there surely there's somebody out there who's been good enough to do it. I don't know. Anyway, so season that was. Let's not talk about Texas and Oklahoma. Nobody on this channel cares about them, all right? But we'll hand out grades to the Hateful Eight. We'll talk about, did they meet expectations? Did they exceed expectations? Were they a complete flop? And we'll go through it from there. We'll start at the bottom with the Cincinnati Bearcats. How's that sound? Okay. In fact, let me pull up my notes here. All right. Get our Big 12 standings. Huzzah. All right. So, Cincinnati. Obviously, we're talking about a team that fell short of expectations. Look no further than the Cincinnati Bearcats. The poor Bearcats, man. 3-9 season, 14th in the Big 12. The only wins coming against Eastern Kentucky, Pitt, and Houston. So if you'll remember, Bearcats did get that first Big 12 win out of the way, but still waiting for the first win against a legacy Big 12 team. We'll see how long it takes for them to get over that hump. But overall, a season that left a lot to be desired, right? Obviously, you don't make a bowl game. You don't even, the only team that I could say was more disappointed about this season than Cincinnati has to be the next team that we'll talk about here in just a second. But Cincinnati, you had to expect, after losing all that they lost and having Scott Satterfield as their coach, first year in a Power 5 league, you expected a step back. But this is pretty stark, right? I don't know what else to say about it, to be completely honest with you, other than the fact that this is, if I'm going to hand out a grade for Cincinnati, it's hard to truly give Cincinnati an F, simply because there is an adjustment period, usually your first year in a Power 5 conference. The expectations weren't especially high going into the year, but it was not fun on the riverbank there up in South Ohio. So we'll give them a D. How's that? We'll give Cincinnati a D on the year. Hopefully there's some improvement in the future. They've always got basketball season, right? They've always got this impossible gauntlet of a basketball conference to attempt to get through. All right, next up on the list, you know them. You probably don't love them. It's the Baylor Bears. Another 3-9 season for Baylor. Just like Cincinnati, they finished 2-7 in conference, putting them just ahead of Cincinnati. Boy, howdy, it was a tough season down in Waco for the Bears. As my aunt would say, rise, Brazos, rise, because there were undoubtedly lots of Baylor tears down there in McLean Stadium. Baylor's got problems, right? They're trying to work the transfer portal. They got a new offensive coordinator, but Dave Aranda is still there. I don't know. They haven't done much to inspire a lot of confidence going into this next season. A year after, their only wins came against Long Island, which, surprised me that they even had a football team. UCF, which, of course, that was the shocker, right? They managed to beat UCF 36-35 in Orlando, and at Cincinnati, right? There's your only other team that unverified, that absolutely had a worse season than Baylor did. But other than that, it's just a lot of just crushing losses. And when I say crushing, not like they were close, right? They hung with West Virginia, losing that one 34-31, trying to end the season on a high note. But they got pummeled by TCU, Kansas State, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Texas. Won a nail-biter against Utah, which I don't know, man. Looking at Utah, everyone's high on Utah going into the Big 12 next year. And, yeah, they got returning talent. And, Kyle Whittingham's a great coach. But, they beat Baylor 20-13. They needed a phantom pass interference call or a missed pass interference call in order to win that game. And they lost their bowl game to Northwestern. I don't know, man. You look, too, at how Washington, as dominant as Washington was all year, and the way they looked against Michigan, maybe the Pac-12 ain't that great, right? Hot take. I love those schools, and I am happy to have Arizona State, Colorado, Utah in the conference. Bring them on. I'm so happy to have them, but, I think they might have a little overinflated image of themselves, right? I don't know. Just one man's observation, right? Just one man's observation. But we're not talking about Utah. We're talking about Baylor. Baylor, this is one that undoubtedly Dave Aranda is going to be on the hot seat going into this next year. They've got a lot to prove, and are they going to be able to do it? Like I said, there's just not a lot to inspire confidence. I still see this team. I mean, we're way too early. The season just ended. I have a hard time seeing this Baylor team cracking the top half of the conference next year. And if I'm going to give them a grade on the year, I give them an F, man. If I'm a Baylor fan and you look at the state of your program right now from where it was 2 years ago, it's just awful. It's inexcusable. It's horrible. There's not a lot of good things to say, right? I mean, truthfully, without that miracle against UCF, who's, like a bottom level bowl team. Sorry, UCF. There is not a lot of good things to say about this year. Not a lot of good things at all. So we'll see, though. F for Baylor and F Baylor and, all that great stuff. Screw Baylor. Nobody likes them, so it's fine. Okay. Hey, so good to see all of y'all in the chat. You've all realized, oh my God, the show started. And he actually didn't forget. Yes, I didn't forget. I'll show you. Look, I was installing this lock. Okay. I haven't had a hard time getting in and out of our back door. So I had to do that, and I was on the phone with Vivint, and then I lost a screw underneath the couch, and that was fun. So, but here I am. We're doing it now. We're doing the thing now. So next up on the list, the lovable BYU Cougars. Okay, another 2-7 conference record, finishing 5-7 on the year. And now this is one that's brutal, right? Because BYU was in a lot of these games. Well, no, that's not entirely true. I say that. They were in a couple. I remember the last two, okay? They were in 3 of these games that they lost, okay? So when you think about being on the precipice of bowl qualification, I mean, BYU and TCU were very much in the same camp this year, right? You had a couple of losses that was just, you got completely outclassed. You did not belong on that was not your day. You did not belong in the same field as that other team. But there were plenty of opportunities, especially there at the end of the year. BYU finished really strong. And they're always a team that plays hard. They're always usually a disciplined team. When I talk about close losses, I'm, of course, talking about Kansas, which ended up being an 11-point loss. But they gave Kansas, a very good Kansas team, all they could handle. And, of course, the last two, right? They easily could have beaten Oklahoma. They lose to Oklahoma at home 31-24. And they dang near beat Oklahoma State, right? Which isn't saying much, right? Oklahoma State doing Oklahoma State things, losing games that they shouldn't lose and winning games that they shouldn't win. But we all remember that one. Overtime game. Oklahoma State wins 40-34. So BYU, what does BYU look like going into next? Well, let's give them a grade. So first year in a Power 5 conference, of course, you got to adjust your expectations. BYU's been in a unique situation the last couple of decades wherein they've played up a lot of big teams, and being independent for the last couple of years, they could set their own schedule, but it's just different than the week. I hate to be that guy, but the week in, week out grind of a Power 5 conference. When you look at BYU, you are looking at some quality wins, right? They got a win at Arkansas, who turned out to be not that great, but that was really impressive at the time. Beating Cincinnati, beating Texas Tech, which is something TCU couldn't do, and then losing 5 straight to close out the season. That's what really hurts, right? Because BYU had positioned themselves really well in the first half of the season, and they just could not close it out down the stretch. It's a brutal last 5 games. I'm inclined to be a little kind in my grade of BYU on this season. Maybe if I was a BYU fan, I would feel differently. But to me, 5-7 and being so stinking close in so many of these games, your first year in the Big 12, I'm tempted to give this like a C-, right? I mean, obviously it's not something that you're happy with, but it's not horrific. It's not Baylor and Cincinnati. You get a couple of bounces to go your way, and you're talking about playing in a bowl game and feeling a lot better about things. As for next season, it's going to be interesting, right? Because Caden Slovis, I believe, is gone after next season. Let's see if we can do. I mean, who knows anymore, right? With COVID years and everything, who knows anymore? But he is listed as a senior as of this past season. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe some of y'all know better than me whether or not he's coming back. Let me check the chat really quick. Okay, make sure I'm not behind on anything. Yeah, so and I don't know, man. don't know. I guess I would hope some of my West Virginia people would know if Caden Slovis has an extra year after watching him at Pitt. Yeah, man. So 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay, so he has played for 5 seasons, including 2020. So he's burned his red shirt. 5 So, okay, I think he's done. Unless I'm completely confused. He should be done. So who becomes BYU's quarterback next year? I feel like we saw somebody else. Yeah, Retzlaff. That's right. Jake Retzlaff, who was serviceable in his action. He was 63 of 125 on the season for 648 yards. That's a 50% completion rate. It's not dazzling, but it's serviceable. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 7 sacks. So, and Retzlaff is he's a junior this year. He will be a senior. We'll see what happens. BYU is always a tough out. It's going to be interesting to see what they do their second year in the conference as well. But give them a C for now. That's how I'm feeling about it. Okay, let's talk about Houston, who was clearly not happy with their season, finishing 4-8, enough to say bye-bye to Dana Holgorsen, send him and his Red Bulls packing. Houston Cougars, their 4 wins coming against UTSA, Sam Houston State, West Virginia, which still, golly, try and figure that one out, and Baylor, beating Baylor 25-24. That was Dana Holgorsen's big swan song there before a rough last 3 games of the season and some tragedy on the team as well. It's worth noting that. Obviously Houston was unhappy with the season. This is a D season, I think. You're unhappy with Dana Holgorsen. So, yeah, what else can you say, right? Houston struggled, and I think that they were justified in moving on. I think that Willie Fritz, I think that's a really intriguing hire. I really love that hire for them. I think, I don't know if unfortunate is the right word, but it's interesting that he's, of an elevated age, right? This isn't somebody that you're thinking about building with for the long term, but I think Houston's just looking for some energy and some success, like, for God's sake, right? Who cares if we got a coach that's long in the tooth? He's proved himself and he turned Tulane around, right? That's saying something. So, and he's got a track record in that immediate area there, that Bayou area there by the Gulf Coast. So if I'm a Houston fan, I'm feeling cautiously optimistic about the future. Maybe you challenge for a bowl game next year with Willie Fritz if you get the right pieces in place. But this year just was what it was, man. Was what it was. Anybody that's losing to TCU by double digits last year, you gotta reevaluate your life choices. That brings me to my beloved Frogs. Oh man, alive. This was a rough year, man. I'm here to friggin' tell you. Frogs went 5-7 on the year, 3-6 in conference. It all started out with that miserable Colorado game where you can thank us for the Deion Sanders hype train running out of control for the month of September. Frogs losing 45-42 in a game that Chandler Morris threw 2 red zone interceptions. And now Chandler Morris is moving on, right? Which honestly, from my perspective and a lot of Frog fans' perspectives, it's like, hey, you know what, man? Vaya con Dios. Thanks for the 2021 Baylor game. Best wishes, best of luck to you in the future, because it just wasn't working, man. It was not working. Chandler Morris seems like a great kid. But my outside opinion is he looked like he was always in his head. He looked like he was pressing a lot. It looked like he was trying to make things happen instead of just letting the game come to him, trying to force balls. And that's when you get a lot of needless interceptions or being afraid to run or running at the wrong times because of his knee injury. It's just, I think he needs a fresh start. And I am very excited about Josh Hoover. You know what? Call me crazy. But that kid, when he's got time to throw, he's a freaking surgeon back there. Ask a BYU fan, man. Ask a BYU fan. Our biggest issue on offense, as far as I'm concerned, week in and week out, was interior offensive line play and a complete and utter lack of physicality. And we had some really solid transfers coming out on the offensive line. I think we lost one of them. Man, the portal, oh my God, it's so much to keep up with. We had one kid coming from UNT in the portal who I believe UNC has now flipped North Carolina, even though he had already signed or whatever to come play for us. But I know we do have at least one kid coming from San Diego State. I'm pretty sure we have a kid coming from somewhere else. We're trying to shore up that interior offensive line. It really needs some help. And Josh Hoover, I'm very excited about his ability to throw the ball with some time. To me, TCU, and I'm very excited about Andy Avalos. I think he's a great change at defensive coordinator, somebody who's focused on applying pressure out of the 3-3-5, somebody who has not given up over 60 points in his last game of the season in back-to-back years, right? And we got some pieces returning. I think if you're a TCU fan, a bowl game is the bare minimum expectation next year. Bare minimum. If you don't make a bowl game next year, Sonny Dykes is on the hot seat. He is, which is shocking to say after the magic that was 2022. But I mean, you can't do that 2 years in a row. I think just the temperature of a lot of TCU fans just talking around is a lot of us are thinking, hey, if we can have an 8-win season, we'll feel really good about that, right? We could have the pieces in place to do that. And that's kind of the goal, right? And then hopefully by the time Josh Hoover that'll be a junior, or maybe you have Haas Haney overtaking him, the Alito star. Then we're talking about, okay, now we're at the peak of our development cycle. Let's see if we can make some noise. But until then, to me, this season, it's an F for me, man. This TCU season was an F. I mean, to go from playing in the national championship game to missing a bowl game, that sucks, man. Not many people have experienced that. Let me tell you, it sucks. Especially too, there was a lot of talent on this team. There's no reason that it should have ended up the way it did. And I mean, people were there was a lot of hype around this team going into the season, like, oh my gosh, this could be a double-digit win team. And there's a lot of optimism from within the program, and man, we could maybe backdoor our way into the Big 12 championship again, like Oklahoma State ended up doing. But yeah, to me, just comparing expectations to reality, TCU was an F this year. We'll see what happens. Okay, Tim, that's my kind of opinion. TCU will win 7 games next year. Yeah, that's where most TCU fans are at. Thinking bowl game, bare minimum, 7-8 win season. That seems doable, and that seems like, okay, I'll feel good about that, right? I'll feel like we're kind of getting our way there. Yes, wet blanket back. You lost to South Alabama, man. You lost to South Alabama, so yes, it's backdooring your way into the Big 12 championship. I'm not taking anything away from Oklahoma State, but you didn't run. Nobody saw this happening in the first half of the season. That's all I mean by it, right? Okay, so let's talk about UCF. Let's talk about another team that shockingly beat Oklahoma State, actually. Right. So then, okay, wet blanket, you lost to UCF. How's that? These were not confidence-inspiring moments. But let's talk about UCF. I mean, UCF to me, I'm giving UCF a B on the season. Okay, I know UCF fans, they probably are a little more disappointed, but 6-7 on the year, 3-6. You make a bowl game your first year in the Big 12. That's not an easy thing to do. I mean, the Frogs managed to do it our first year in the Big 12, but it was not easy. That was my senior year with the team. And we also had a lot of turmoil with Casey Paha getting a DUI and other things, but you had to battle, right? And UCF, with John Rice Plumlee's injuries and all their other woes, they had to battle to get to that Gasparilla Bowl, only to be embarrassed by Georgia Tech. But there you go. So let's talk about their wins. Let's talk about the good things. They beat Kent State. They beat Boise State 18-16 on the blue turf. That was a big win for them. Beat Villanova, then rattled off 5 straight losses: Kansas State, Baylor, Kansas, and Oklahoma, and West Virginia. Ouch. The Baylor one is really the shocker in there. All these others are okay. Yes, right. This is the top echelon of the conference this year. That's not surprising. They followed that up with the 28-26 nail biter against Cincinnati, the 45-3 win over Oklahoma State. Okay, what? Scientists are gonna study that for decades. What happened there? The loss to Texas Tech in Lubbock. and then beating Houston. So, I mean, I think it's a B. You had the stunning win over Oklahoma State. You managed to get a bowl game. Yeah, I mean, what else can you say about it? What's going to be interesting is next year, right? Because I think Plumlee's gone. Is he not? I mean, does he have a super duper senior year? He's played well. Okay, I guess he might have gotten a red shirt in 21 or a gray shirt or some kind of shirt. So maybe he's back. I don't know. I should have done more I should have done more research before this show. God, wet blanket, would you relax, man? It's not that serious, man, okay? It's not that serious. It's okay. Oklahoma State earned their spot in the Big 12 title. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, okay? You don't get your feelings hurt. I'm just saying, okay? Let me have what I have, okay? It was a rough season. It's a rough season. Okay. UCF next year, I mean, I think that people are, oh my God, no. I'm ridiculous. They got KJ Jefferson. Yeah, UCF's going to be good. UCF's going to be good next year. Man, that was one that I was like, hey, maybe there's an outside chance KJ Jefferson comes to TCU. If our offensive coordinator is good for anything, surely it's the fact that he has a pre-existing relationship with this super talented quarterback from the SEC who intends to transfer. No such luck. He's going to UCF. Great. Amazing. Okay, well, UCF they'll be good next year again. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if they can build off this or if they end up where they end up. I don't know, man. That's going to be very interesting. This is my project, okay? Especially while I am a little too busy to try and put sketches on film right now. I need to be seeking out people from all of these schools to come on and talk about their schools for a postmortem and a look ahead next year. So if y'all have any suggestions, actually, I mean, I know some people from some schools, we'll probably have John Grove back on here to talk about Kansas State, probably have Austin Eckerd back on to talk about Kansas. And I obviously have a lot of TCU folks. But if you have any suggestions where you're like, oh my God, like I want to see Dolly drama from Twitter for UCF or whoever, right? Let me know. Who do I need to be seeking out here? I got lots of BYU people, TCU. I got Kansas State. I feel like I have an Iowa State person, maybe. I got lots of West Virginia people. But, hey, let me know what you're thinking. That's something that I want to accomplish here this offseason. Okay, so yeah, UCF. The vibes are high despite the loss in the Gasparilla Bowl. Okay. Now, shockingly, just ahead of them in the standings, felt like a way better season than this, is Kansas, man. So they finished 9-4 in the year, 5-4 in the Big 12. That's how they end up at the place that they're at. Man, the Jayhawks, the Mangino days are back, baby. Kansas is for real, and they're only going to continue to be good. Jalen Daniels is back again next year. They're going to continue to be a top half of the Big 12 conference. And let's look at the season that was, right? They get 4 straight wins. They start 4-0 on the season. Missouri State, Illinois, Nevada, and BYU. They lose the tough game to Texas, beat UCF, lose to Oklahoma State, very close, beat Oklahoma, you love to see it, beat Iowa State, 2 straight losses to Tech and Kansas State, and finish the year with a win against Cincinnati before beating UNLV 49-36 in the bowl game. Okay, Kansas, I'm giving their season okay. I'm giving them an A, man. I'm giving them an A. Obviously, if you're Kansas, you really wanted to win that game against Kansas State. They were close, but no cigar. It feels weird to give a 9-4 season an A, but it's Kansas, man. Like, they are building something there. And the vibes are unmatched, right? You got to feel super confident about this if you're a Kansas fan. I love it. I love it. And they got so many guys coming back. Great stuff. Let's look at Texas Tech. This is one where the hype train got a little bit ahead of the skis, right? Tech finishes 7-6 on the season, 5-4. I mean, better season than TCU. They went to a bowl game, beat California in the Independence Bowl. They got a nice shiny trophy. But it's the losses that really stand out, right? Losing to Wyoming on the road, which Wyoming is no slouch, but that doesn't feel good. Losing that heartbreaker to Oregon at home with the game with all of Tyler Shuck's interceptions. Losing to West Virginia 20-13. Losing to Kansas State at home. Losing to BYU in Provo. I mean, those are some heartbreakers. And let's not forget, Texas's absolute demolishment of Texas Tech and what will undoubtedly be the last time they ever play. That sucks. That really sucks. But impressive wins in there as well. Beating Kansas, right? 16-13. We talked about that one. Also, actually, that's their only impressive win. I mean, they beat TCU in a tight game. That's the difference between bowl eligibility and not bowl eligibility. But, I mean, you can't really say that UCF, TCU, Baylor, or Houston are impressive wins, or Cal for that matter. Yeah, this is the benefit of a fairly I don't want to say easy. Well, I can't think of the word. My brain is so fried today, y'all. I'm sorry. A amenable schedule, right? A schedule that played to their favor, right? I don't know, man. I think that I'm still not buying the Joey McGuire hype. I'm glad Tech fans are excited about him. I think that it's not like they're going to be terrible next year or anything. I mean, I think that obviously Taj Brooks is talented, and I like that little quarterback they got. But I don't think this is a team that's challenging for the Big 12 championship anytime soon. I think all that Big 12 dark horse talk is very overwrought. And this is somebody that I want good things to happen to Texas Tech. I'm not your usual TCU fan. I mean, obviously, I always want us to win the saddle from them, but I have a soft spot in my heart for Texas Tech, mostly because of my late father-in-law was a diehard Texas Tech fan and the greatest human being I've ever known in my life. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess you give it a B. They won a bowl game. Yeah, I'll give them a B. But I mean, if I'm not a completely delusional Tech fan, I'm kind of like, what's their? I mean, so we're okay, right? So we're mediocre. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at on Texas Tech. Okay, Joey's back in the chat. Tim's here. Let's talk about West Virginia. A 9-4 season, man. 6-3 in the Big 12. Arguably could have been even better, right? Neil Brown is here to stay. The man is probably still getting mayo out of his ears after that Mayo Bowl domination of North Carolina. I mean, let's look at this season, man. So there's the loss to Penn State, the 38-15 loss to Penn State. That was a lot closer than the score indicates in Happy Valley. You get 4 straight wins. Among them are Pitt, eat it, right? Beating Texas Tech and beating TCU. That really sent our season off the rails. The loss to Houston, again, is the total head scratcher. But you beat UCF, you beat BYU. The loss to Oklahoma sucks. Beat Cincinnati, beat Baylor, and then the North Carolina victory. I mean, listen, man. I feel like, maybe if you really got your golden blue glasses on, you're like, oh, it's a B. Like it's good. I'm giving this season an A for West Virginia, man. They came out of nowhere. So many people were burying Neil Brown, saying, fire this guy immediately. He's done in West Virginia. It's not going to succeed. You had people picking them last in the conference, below Cincinnati, man. No, this was an amazing season. Truly. I mean, if things break your way differently in Houston, as they, if there's not a miracle in Houston, you're talking about a 10-win season, man. In a year that you were picked last in the Big 12 by some polls, that's an A. The climb is being trusted, man, more than ever. And Garrett Green is a great quarterback. You got a lot of production coming back next year. Sign me up. I am buying West Virginia stock all day, every day. Man alive. So, I mean, and we'll see what you, Tim and Joey think. Oh, okay, here you go, Tim. New slogan, Neil is for real. Yeah, it would appear so, man. It would appear so. A season for West Virginia. I mean, I'm proud of y'all. This is the Ron Swanson gift. I'm proud of you, son. Okay, I'm going to try and wrap this thing up before before my wife gets home from work. Okay, let's talk about Kansas State. You're reigning Pop-Tart Bowl champions. Oh my gosh. If we're doing a post-mortem on the season, we have to talk about the Pop-Tart Bowl, which lived up to all of my expectations. The Pop-Tart mascot broke the internet. He descended into the toaster and was then edible. And it was a solid game. Oh my God. Like, forget the college football playoff. This is why we love college football, man. It's the Pop-Tart Bowl. This is what we love, okay? The love of the game. And Kansas State, your inaugural Pop-Tart Bowl champions. You love to see it. K-State finishes the season 9-4, 6-3, just like West Virginia. They lose the heartbreaker to Mizzou. That was not fun. They also lose a close game to Oklahoma State and an even closer game to Texas. They should have beaten Texas, man. This is what Kansas State every single one of their losses. I didn't even realize it until looking back at this. Every single one of those losses was a winnable game. And, you would even argue that 2 of those they should have won. So Kansas State is just, a couple bounces away from also being a double-digit win team on this year. I'm hesitant to give them an A, though, just because expectations were so high going into the season. You're the defending Big 12 champs, and you had Will Howard his last year in purple. Very talented defense, very talented offensive line. I give them a B, right? It's still a good season. It's still Chris Kleiman, I still think, is the best coach in the Big 12. But, just a little short of what you would have hoped for a truly excellent S-tier season. Now you got Will Howard going to Ohio State. I mean, what do you think about that? That's crazy, right? It's Avery Johnson's team now. And I think he's more than capable. I think he's a really talented kid. He's a kid that TCU wanted, right, when Gary Patterson was still at TCU. So I don't think Kansas State's going anywhere. They're going to continue to be a title contender in the new Big 12. And certainly next year, I think they can challenge for that title next year as well. Feeling good about Kansas State. Trust in the climb. Neil is for real. You are correct about that, Joseph. Joseph Foster, you are so right. Okay. Let's round it out with the other 2 hateful haters we have left. Iowa State, who, despite a 7-6 season, was 6-3 in the Big 12, so putting them in 4th place. What happened this year, man? This is crazy. This is another one. I mean, you talk about Oklahoma State being shocking after the way their season began. Golly. They beat Northern Iowa, which is far from a gimme. Lose to Iowa, which is just like, okay, yes, it's a season ending in numbers. So we've lost to Iowa. Okay. That Ohio loss, when you have the dude being like, Matt Campbell's on the hot seat, then you're like, oh, the wheels are falling off. This is not going anywhere. They beat Oklahoma State. Okay. I keep seeing all these Oklahoma State losses, and Wet Blanket had his feelings hurt about me saying they backed their way in the Big 12 championship game. Okay. They beat Oklahoma State. They beat TCU, of course. That was one of our lower points of the season when they were wearing their flesh-colored pants. Beat Cincinnati, beat Baylor, and beat BYU, lose to Kansas, lose to Texas, and they beat Kansas State in that glorious Farmageddon game in the snow. They do lose the Liberty Bowl to Memphis. Hard to give a C to a year that they finished bowl eligible after the way they started. But this also doesn't feel like a B to me, right? Because Iowa State under Matt Campbell has kind of built themselves into a, more competent squad. Did Iowa State have sky high expectations this year? No. I don't know. Let's give them a B-. Let's give them a B- on the year. Rocco Becht is coming back. Really loved what I saw from him this year. And Abu Sama, I'm assuming he's coming back. Oh yeah, he's only a freshman. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's good news for Iowa State. Yeah, they're gonna be solid next year. It's gonna be exciting to have a Cyclone on the show and talk about what is ahead for them. And let's finish it up talking about the Pokes. So Oklahoma State, they make it to the Big 12 title game. It does not go well, right? But they win when they won when they had to. Wet Blanket said it. He's not wrong. They beat Arizona State. They did lose back-to-back games against South Alabama and Iowa State. This is when most people were burying them, right? But then they rattle off win against Kansas, win against Kansas State, win against West Virginia, win against Cincinnati, win against Oklahoma. 5 straight wins to climb back into conference contention. And that Bedlam one, man, hey, if you're not hanging that over every Oklahoma Sooners head, if you're a Cowboys fan, then you're doing it wrong, right? You better let them remember that every single day of their lives. Then the true shocker, right? If you thought South Alabama was shocking, the loss to the UCF that we've mentioned, 45-3 on the road, but then finishing the season strong, beating Houston, edging out BYU, and then the disastrous Texas game. Oklahoma State, man, they're going to be good next year, right? This is, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better favorite for the conference. And again, it's early, but you've got a 30-year-old Alan Bowman there, helming the ship, coming off the best season of his career. Ollie Gordon's back. Nobody's leaving in the transfer portal this time around. They got the pieces, man. Oklahoma State, they're the team to beat. I think West Virginia is going to challenge for the title. I think Kansas is going to challenge for the title. I think that Kansas State will challenge for the title. Maybe Utah challenges for that. I'm a little higher on Arizona than I am on Utah, honestly. And, maybe that's bowl season. But Oklahoma State is, if I'm picking today, in my very early Big 12 picks, Oklahoma State's the team to beat next year. I think that very strongly. Would have liked for that. I mean, I love them beating A&M in the Texas Bowl. Beautiful. Chef's kiss. Would have liked for the score to have held. Just because now you have A&M fans being like, whoa, we hang the banner. We only lost by 8 when we were playing with our 4th string. Like, shut up, man. Stop. But you know what? I mean, it's hard to it's an A season. I was going to say, because this season, it was very Mike Gundy, right? You had really low lows and really high highs in this season. And maybe if the Big 12 championship was a little bit closer, then I feel better about it. I mean, I feel super good about Oklahoma State going into next year, but just the year that was, I don't know. If I'm an Oklahoma State, I'm thinking like A- if I'm an Oklahoma State fan. But heck, 10-4 ain't nothing to sneeze at, man. Double-digit win season and second in the Big 12. Yeah, and winning Bedlam. Yeah, honestly, that alone that puts it in A tier, but still probably A-, just because UCF, South Alabama, Iowa State. I mean, those hurt, right? Those stung. And playing Texas so not well, right? Okay. All right. So that's the show, man. That's all I've got. That's all I've got for you. So, like I say, my plan moving forward is to try and get as many folks from other teams as possible to come and talk about the season that was and the season that's fixing to be. If you've got any suggestions, if there's anybody that you would love to hear from on the show, let me know. But, college football's over. Single tear rolled down his face. It was a miserable season for me personally. But that's why we love this sport, man. Right? It's the emotional highs, the emotional lows. And at least the Frogs beat Baylor, right? It could be worse. At least we beat Baylor. So thanks so much for tuning in. As always, again, I apologize for being a little bit late starting the show, but you know what? Y'all pulled through with me. So as always, this has been the Biggest 12. Do subscribe to us at Big 12 VOCFB. We're exclusively on this channel now moving forward. No more simulcasting with the voice of college football. So if you want to watch this show, this is the only place to do it, baby girl. Okay? All right? At Big 12 VOCFB, like, subscribe, ding-a-ling-a-ling bell, and follow me on Twitter at @Clint_Foster55. You can DM me on there, right? You can tweet at me. Let me know who it is that you want to see on the show so I can make it happen. And subscribe to my YouTube channel at Clint Foster Comedy. I'm working on it, y'all. I'm going to have more videos out for you just as quick as I can. All right. But in the meantime, we're going to get through this together. The long off season is ahead of us, but we got each other. All right. And maybe the true championship was the friends we made along the way. Right. I love y'all. Hope your team wins. Have a great night.